Midwest, it's a little bit different. But hiring someone just because they're Black and a female, I'm grateful that we have minorities to do that job. Absolutely. But it doesn't matter if you're a minority and you're not willing to stand up. We had the Tino report in St. Louis City that failed to address a number of things. We had an African American, former chief of Philadelphia, Chuck Ramsey, who it was an embarrassment. Literally, we've had racist incident after racist incident. We have about 7 pending lawsuits with Black officers against the city of St. Louis. And their report from top to bottom failed to address it. And he is African American. So just because you have African American doesn't mean you're going to have representation. It doesn't mean you're going to have someone that's going to stand up for the people. You have to have an African American or a white, Asian, Latino I don't care what race, whoever that person is, they must stand up because democracy is depending on it. They have to get to the bottom of what happened in DC because it was obviously an inside job where very few minorities had an inside track to what was going on because they were getting their information from Instagram to let them know it's going to be deadly. So, just because you have Black doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right, because we have a lot of Black people in our community that have failed us in the community as citizens and in law enforcement, and definitely politicians. If she's going to be a politician, she's got to go. If she's going to stand up and face the FOP racist media, racist officers, and weed them out, then I applaud her and I wish her well, that she does well, because the democracy is depending on her doing well.
I agree. I definitely agree. Micaiah.
Well, I think we're going to give y'all something to soften the blow. And I'm not being facetious or disrespectful. Let's put a Black woman in there. We don't want to put a male right now because, we want to put a soft person in there and kind of soften this blow right here. Number one. And as just what you said, me and Cario have been thrown out to pastor, and both of our leadership were Black men. I'm just going to leave that there. So my thing is, we looking at your work, sister, because number one, you got a lot cut out for you. Not only is you're now the chief, but you got to deal with everybody under you. You don't even know who you working amongst. So she's going to have to learn a captain. She's going to have to learn all of them, because evidently it's some more in there that's probably corrupt. So it's going to be real. It's almost like she's going in blindfolded, and she doesn't even realize who's for her, who's against her. So she's just weeding that out is going to be a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I'm real curious to know what was her motive. Because if her motive is for the right thing, she got a hard fight. Because she got to start with the internal stuff that's going in within that department before she can change anything else. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Wow. That's going to be a tall order too. Oh, how about you, Charles?
If they're going to let her be a chief, be a chief. And I mean, I've been there and did that. Okay. If you are going to be the chief, you act like you are the chief. Go in there, find out where your problems are, and then just point blank, start kicking butt. You can't afford not to. Now, if they put her in there as a figurehead, then, wear the stars, come to work, sit in the office, get somebody to bring you a cup of coffee, and shut the hell up. Plain and simple.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I didn't
Carry on
about that.
How about you, Carrie?
Well, I guess if you want the job done, you get a Black woman. But that's only if she's not there for the wrong reasons. If she's there for the right reasons, believe me, she can get the job done.
Correct.
So I would like to. I didn't know that, so I was trying to Google it, and of course got sidetracked. While y'all were talking, I was listening. So I got sidetracked and started listening like I'm supposed to, but I was trying to see who she was. But if she's there to do the right thing, then she'll be good. Be nice to give her some support, let her know.
Oh,
Yeah.
right,
Hey Terry,
right. Yeah,
one more thing.
yes.
I wonder if it's a setup.
Mm.
Because policing has a habit of setting us up, especially black women.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna throw her out there and let her take the fall because there's gotta be a fall. It's already a fall. Let her take this heat. I've been there and done that, and I've seen it done to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am concerned about that. But being a black woman, as Carol says, we're gonna handle our business if it's for the right reasons. So I echo that,
Yep.
Carol, that I hope it's for the right reasons, because if it is, then she gonna come through.
Yeah. Yeah.
She gonna come through. I'm hoping it. I'm hoping that.
Yeah. I wish her
Yep.
well.
Yes. I no, I do too. I just, I always, you know, want to make, I always had this thought that when they put someone black in leadership in policing, they gotta let not just the body, but the mind take over too. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm afraid it doesn't happen as often as it could. Um, But okay, so we had a little disconnect on YouTube. Again, technology. I can't wait till the pandemic is over and we don't have to rely on technology anymore. I had to repost the link to YouTube. It's oh my goodness. But I do want to give you all a chance to sort of give your take on how do we take this incident and one make sure it doesn't happen again. But two, um, how do we learn from this? What can law enforcement, particularly law enforcement, learn from this? And I, I I also want to say is when I put this call out, I put this call out to all law enforcement, not just black law enforcement. And someone asked me that recently, and I said, the reason why it's all black is because that's the ones that's responding. Um, and so I wanted to keep that in mind. Just where can we go from here? Especially how do we address law enforcement? Make sure this doesn't happen again. Make sure that we learn from this situation.
I think you have got to definitely show accountability. Those officers that were involved, you have got to make a large statement. Number one, just to make the officers that are there that are good officers even feel safe. You gotta, because I know right now it's got to be all kind of division because you don't know who to trust. You have to, because how can a department go out and be effective in a community if they're all divided? You've got to make a statement. If that's not addressed, you're gonna. I don't even know, and maybe someone else on the panel can answer. I don't even know where to begin. That's the first step. You got to address it. Number one. Number two, then you have to put proper leadership in place. Leadership with integrity. Leadership that understands when I'm a leader, that means I'm for all people. It doesn't make a difference. When you see that uniform, you're not just for white officers, but you're for all people and the community. That's who you serve. And you have to make sure their integrity is intact, because if that was the case, we wouldn't even been seeing what we saw at the Capitol. If you were for the right things, we wouldn't even be.
Right.
I was in it almost made me feel like I was in a third world country. And I'm being totally honest. I would have never in my entire life would have imagined that I would be watching this on TV, and to watch how it played out and how ill-equipped these officers' backup was, and how these people were pepper spraying the police and punching them in the face, and how these officers, some of them were like almost afraid to fight back, but they were surrounded, and how people were out there with guns. And I was astonished to see a senator out there pushing his way. A senator? What do you? I couldn't. I thought I was on punk. I'm being honest. I said, this is a joke. This can't be happening for real. And to watch our president in a tent watching this happening, you sparked it. You never went and said anything to your people until the president-elect said, hey, you need to get up there and say something. You watching all this happen.
Wow.
So it gotta be accountability, and you have got to strip leaders, strip all the people like Sonia said, people that's making decisions. You got to go through them with a fine-tooth comb, because we know that it's more to the story than what's being said. So you need to look at all of them.
Wow. And you're so on point there. How about you, Heather? Your thoughts on that too? Where do we go from here?
I got to unmute myself again. Sorry, guys. So I think where we go from here is that, like Sonia said earlier, you have to address systemic racism and white supremacy in every faction of our life. You're talking about buying a home. The cost of buying a home for African Americans is much higher. Our interest rates, we have to address that. Whenever we're dealing with banking, how we're denied loans because we're African American. Car loans, you're paying more interest-wise because of your race. Your insurance, you're paying more interest-wise. We literally just had an African American doctor who died from COVID telling the nurses and the doctors that they weren't treating her fairly. So we have these pockets of racism everywhere throughout our society. Law enforcement, of course, is at the very top of it because you're taking away freedom and rights from people. However, we have to address it in every part of our lives. And if America really wants to be great, you're going to have to do right by people. And you cannot have everyone that's white and male leading the way.
Yeah.
Because society is not white and male. You cannot have white and male or male leading the way. Sorry, Lieutenant Wilson, you know you're dope. But you cannot have that. You have to have diversity there. You have to have different voices present. And those voices that are present, they have to be willing, Black and white, because there are some Black people that don't believe in systemic racism while they're being facing systemic racism, especially in law enforcement. So the only way we're going to address it is dismantling racism and holding people accountable for racism. You cannot call the police on a man bird watching in Central Park. You cannot call the police on children selling bottles of water. Oh, you got to be held accountable because we know what that is. That systemic racism is profiling. And you cannot have organizations like the FOP. And I'm on the FOP track. Everything that's said about their page and on my personal page, because I believe the FOP needs to be dismantled. It is a racist organization that has inherently done things to minimize the voices of Black officers who have stood up, who have been fighting to change the system. This organization came out to change the racial profiling laws. This organization literally have people in it that are president in these local lodges. Their format follows that of the KKK, really, if you want to break it down, how they're formed, how they do things, and their mentalities. To endorse Donald Trump twice. This was after this president said, before he was president, when he said what he was going to do with women on audio. That was a crime he committed. They endorsed him after he told officers to push suspects into a car. And you had officers in a backdrop in, I believe it was Staten Island, somewhere on the East Coast, where they started laughing. You have a president that continuously says things that were racist rhetoric, violent, and targeting Black Lives Matter, calling them thugs, everything. If Black people are out there protesting and they're committing violent acts, they're dead wrong. But do not call us thugs. Do not call us criminals where we're exercising our First Amendment right and we're doing it non-violently. Protests are not supposed to be without agitation. They're supposed to be agitation. It's a difference, non-violent and violent. Those are the two things, non-violent and violent. And you have an organization, a president that was endorsed by an organization that's been spearheaded because of racism and discrimination throughout the country through minimizing the voices of minorities, run by mostly white men. So when we talk about what we have to do, we got a lot of work to do. But some of the things that I think we start with is financial literacy for our people. quality in the
Yep.
medical field and treatment when we're going in to receive treatment. Those things have to be addressed. And in law enforcement, you must dismantle the fraternal order of police. It must be done. Funding, all of that, they must be monitored, just like the FBI monitors Black Lives Matter.
Mm. You know, the Fraternal Order of Police, there was actually, I think, Charles, your organization just put out a statement about that too, about the lack of response from, you know, the Fraternal Order of Police, amongst other Black law enforcement organizations. Let's dive into that first, because I don't want to end this call until we talk about the silence that we're seeing as well.
We have to accept, as everybody here has said, across the board, no matter what area of our lives and society you want to talk about, whether you want to talk about law enforcement, whether you want to talk about the medical, whether you want to talk about education, which they never have taught kids our history,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm.
Whether you want to talk about ample and sufficient housing, recognize that systemic racism and institutional racism exists in every phase of life that's here, okay?
Yep.
Then understand that it is an issue that, number one, Black folks did not create. Okay, we did not create this problem. So we can only assist you in correcting it, but it's your fault. It's your responsibility to make the corrections. Okay, we're more than willing to help and get it taken care of with you. Okay, because that's who we are. But
I gotta imagine that gotta be some extra tiring work though too. Like, I I was talking to another brother that was going to be on tonight. He couldn't make it, unfortunately. But he talked about a lot of putting extra that extra ownership on Black law enforcement to turn over a system that's as massive as law enforcement as it is. Um, and I want to know, when does that become too much? Is it ever too much? And also thinking about the treatment of Nakaya and Carrier Horn, for example, right? So Nakaya, again, you went viral with your Facebook post about the Alton Sterling shooting, and from that point on, and again, I'm not going to dive into too much of your story because we're going to talk about that another time. But it wasn't like here's an officer trying to change it from the inside. Let's embrace Nakaya and support Nakaya, and let's change it from the let's change our ways. That wasn't happening. So I wonder, when is it ever too much? Is it ever is it a tall order to ask for? I guess that's my question. Anyone can respond to that one.
Well, first of all, as far as the unions are concerned, they take the money from the police officers and they use it. So every time a police officer gets paid, a percentage of their pay goes into the police union's budget, on top of whatever else they get, because they get donations and everything from everywhere else. So they take our money and then they use it the way they want to use it. Yeah. Now, I remember going to a meeting and them saying that we are going to back this person. It was a politician. We're going to back this person because we can probably use them later on or whatever. And me being naive to politics and everything back then, I really didn't understand. I mean, I totally understand now. That's why some of these politicians and judges are bought. Like even for me to go to court on my court date and be locked up for trespass, that was a politician that was put in by our black mayor. So it was like, so he probably owed a favor, because he got that position. The thing about it is like, we need to, in order to change the system, we need to be a part of that change. We need to change these laws because that's what they use to get us. I don't even understand how someone goes to jail for some of the stuff that people go to jail for. Not that it's not that it's not wrong, but it's for traffic, for instance. It's like if you take somebody's license, they don't stop learning how to drive. So it's like, what? So now you're going to put them in jail, and okay, when they get out, what? They're not going to drive. If they have to go to work, they're going to drive. Yeah. If they have a vehicle, they're going to drive. It's like you need to figure out something else to do. That's why the community is so important, and the community programs are so important, because maybe they can go through a driving program. If you want to put them through something, put them through a driving program. Make sure they're good. If they're alcoholic, first of all, here in Buffalo, this is like Alcoholic Central. It's like, they finding things to celebrate. I mean, I'm sure it's like that in several other places, but it's always a celebration, and it has to do with alcohol. Alcohol has to be involved. That's one of the reasons why I don't drink. Well, if I do drink, it's mixed drinks, just in case y'all want to know. Something real fruity, sweet, whatever. But anyway, I say I'm at a two drink max, because by that time I'm going to sleep. But the thing about it is they always trying to find something to drink for, to celebrate. And celebration means drinking. Like, why? Who does that? So we need to change the rules. It's like a spade game. When you go to somebody's house, I mean, I don't know if everybody knows how to play spade, but but you go to somebody's house to play spade, you got to know the house rules, because some people use the deuce of diamonds, some people don't. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta, and whoever is the house, they change the rules how they want it. So the thing about it is like, we want the rules changed so that they can benefit us. Some of these laws and rules have to be changed. They're old, they're outdated, they don't even make sense, and they never should have made sense. But the point is, because we were not at the table, we had no say so. Yeah. Now we have say so. Right. Now we know that we are the ones to create change. Look, Carrio's law got passed with Donald Trump being president. Yep. Come on now. Yep. Thank you.
That should be the hashtag. Carrio's law got passed while Donald Trump was president.
Because I knew that I couldn't go to him. But Terry helped me write it, y'all. He helped update it.
You know what? I don't. The power of Carrio's laws was carry on horn. I'm just a person that put pen on paper. It was really, again, I can't say this enough, and especially with.
So the thing about it, what you added to it was something that I hadn't even thought about, and that was pretty much making it, the union have accountability too. So that was important because, as we're sitting here talking now, we're all talking about how the police union is part of the problem, a big part of the problem, because they are representing officers who do wrong things. Like in my case, they backed out. They left me without representation. So it's like they take my money, but then choose whether or not to represent me. That's not right. So anyway, the way to change the system is to be a part of it and to change the rules, change the laws.
Well, I want to be conscious of everyone's time. I know I got Brother Shaw Kennedy saying make it 2 hours long, but this is because this is an important conversation. But I'm conscious of time, and I want to make sure that I give everyone an opportunity to answer the question I always ask for every single episode. And again, to me, that is, what is your message for America? And let's start with you, Nakai, because you're the first. Actually, let's start. I'll come back to you because the facial expression said, "Come back to me later on." How about you, Charles? Let's start with you. What's your message to America?
Do what's right. Do what's right. And I think that's, and hold each other accountable, regardless of what your position is. Hold people accountable from the top to the bottom.
Thank you so much, man. And again, Charles, you and I, we got some work to do, and I appreciate the meeting before the break. Very few people will meet, on a Christmas break, but I appreciate it, and I can't wait to work more closely with Nabio as well. All right, let's move on to you, Heather, if you don't mind. What is your message to America again?
My message is let's defund the Fraternal Order of Police. Let's start right there. Let's see how we can, just like the NRA tanked, let's see if we can tank the Fraternal Order of Police, because they're spearheading a lot of things. Anytime you endorse Donald Trump the first time, I can give you that, because you had not as much knowledge. But 4 years later, you endorsed him, and you're quiet on everything that has to do with racism in law enforcement. You're quiet on homophobia. You're quiet on violence in law enforcement, violence between officers or committing against other officers. They're quiet on the big things, the important things, but they want to villainize Black Lives Matter movement. Let's defund them. I think that's the place that you start. And that's a realistic place to start. Let's get them.
I'm writing it down. Thank you, Heather. And again, Heather, I know you're enjoying your new chapter in your life, and you're still involved with ESOP, the Ethical Society of Police. They're still doing some great work, and I know you're still dealing with the folks in St. Louis. So keep up the good fight, and please let me know if there's any way I can help.
Thank you. And just so you know,
well.
you go to my spam email all the time. I got to do better.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Well, Heather, thank you so much. Let's move on to you, Cariol, if you may. What's your message to America?
Treat each other as you want to be treated, and start from the top down. You have to, like she said, the FOP definitely has to be dismantled. It's a white male fraternity, pretty much. So it needs to be it needs to be changed. But we can make laws to help us do that. But in the meantime, we have to make sure that police officers are able to take these steps without having any type of retaliation.
Yep. And Cariol, of course, you're my sister, so we always talking, and I think you and I chat at least twice a week, if on a good week. So we'll keep that conversation going. FYI, Cariol, your case is coming up this week. That's right, and we ought to put some pressure on Buffalo again. We ought to make sure we get her pension back. It is time. I made a video. I'm gonna post that online as well. This year we're gonna celebrate the 100 commemoration of the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots. In Black Wall Street, 100 years ago they burned down building, and now in 2013 they apologized, and pretty much everyone done died. And we're not going to wait till you pass on to the ancestors to acknowledge you. We're going to acknowledge you right now. So we're going to put that pressure on Buffalo and get you your pension, make you whole. So my sister, you keep up that good fight. All right, we're going to move on to you, Sonia. Your message to America.
First, I want to thank you for this this outstanding panel. I don't believe in mistakes, as in, I kind of believe in God putting stuff together. And so you put together me, Heather, my sister. I mean, that's my Ace Boone. And then Nakaya. I don't know Carriel as well, but I know her story. And all of these women don't know it, but they have a place in my future. I just haven't told them what it is yet. So I want to thank you for that. But what I'm gonna go ahead and echo what everybody has pretty much alluded to, which is those structures that we have that are keeping us from making any change need to be not just defunded, Heather, but abolished. I am all for the abolishment of the Fraternal Order of Police. If unions are great, unions are supposed to be there to make sure your working conditions are good, to fight for you, to give you some representation if you do have a court case, to make sure you have nice uniforms and that you're making enough money. Those are the things that a union does, not overstep their bounds now traditionally and historically to do things like support a president who doesn't give a damn about Black people. And they have Black officers who are members of their union. I'm like, how do you do that? And they use our money to do that, to misrepresent us or don't represent us at all. That's absolutely crazy. So I'm in this fight now that I'm retired. I got time and I got room, and so we're trying to figure this thing out. But we don't have a whole lot of time. Our window is short. What happened on Wednesday gave us a little more leeway because now people are like, oh my gosh, we're traumatized. So, what do we do for these our allies are like, what can we do with these Black people? And the Black people are like, what y'all gonna do? So that's where we are. And so I am looking forward to whatever comes in 2021 in a positive way, including handling COVID, which is destroying our community.
Yes, yes. I was reminded too that I did promise that folks can join us in the conversation. So if you can stay on for 5 minutes, just a little bit, 5, 10 minutes, a little longer, as folks who want to join us can. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and if anyone want to hop on board, feel free. But besides that, I want to give my dear sister Nakaya, and again, Sonia, the same thing with you. I know you're retired. I know you got things going on, but whatever we can do to help out,
I
please let me
will. I'll be
know.
calling you.
I am there. We know we got to be on speed dial. So, all right, my dear sister Nakaya, I'm giving you the final word, your message to America before I open up the
Yeah,
lines.
first I wanted to say I'm honored to sit on this panel with these three extraordinary. I just wish that they had been my mentor. I wish I had came under you guys because I know I would have been much farther because you all would have mentored me the right way. So I'm just happy to see I'm on y'all team, first of all. First, I want to say is I want us to stop blaming Donald Trump for all of the actions that are going on with this racism, because a lot of people keep saying, look what he's done. Look what he's created. No, he didn't. He just amplified it. That's who they were in the beginning. So I'm just going to let that be known. So let us stop letting people make excuses for their behavior by saying it's because he was a president. No, it's because of you. And so some of this racism, and they say racism and different things like that, is because of lack of knowledge or scared or whatever. I think some of you all need to take a look in the mirror. You really need to take a look in the mirror right now. That's the first thing I want to say. Number two, the chief of police, the female chief of police, that's the Capitol Police now. I think that us as African Americans, period, even women, we need to send her a letter of support, letting her know that we got your back. If you need us, we here. Because I wish I had that. And I know she gonna need us, and y'all know it, especially if she gonna do the right thing. She's really gonna need the backing of. So I'm asking everybody, even the community, send her a letter of support so she knows we're here for her. Last but not least, I always say it, be the change you wanna see.
Mm. Mm. Nakaya, we just met not so long ago. I followed your story since day one. And if you guys know about Nakaya, she's now part of Strategy for Justice. We're gonna do her. I think the episode's already been booked, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay. So that'll be advertised, be going out too. And if you guys want to have Nakaya come to your area to speak, definitely hit her up. And again, I'll post that link in the chat as well. So I'm gonna open it up now for folks. If you want to join in, if you want to I'm watching the chat. If you want to pop on, let me know. I did post a link in there. I don't want to keep our panelists because they've been with me since actually 6 o'clock because we did some sound checks. So I don't want to keep people on longer than
Hey,
need be.
Terry,
But if anyone,
can I interrupt
yep,
quickly? We don't want Chuck to
yep.
think that we are that we left him out because he ain't a woman, So I already know that if Chuck had been my boss, I probably would have made chief. Instead of struggling towards captain. All right. I already know he got Black women's backs. That's not always the case with Black men and Black women in policing. We looking for them to help us, and we looking around and they're not there. Now, they ain't all Black men. I'm just telling the truth like it is, okay?
See, I knew I was going to get beat up with 4 Black women.
No, but thank you so much, Chuck, for being who you are. Chuck is the outspoken advocate, and if you call him and say we need you, he is right there. So I appreciate you, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
I echo that.
All right, we have someone that's going to join us. And hello, Michelle. How are you today? Let's give Michelle a minute to log in. I just want to tell this quick joke because I was talking to our brother Sean Kennedy before this meeting, and he was like, "Hey, is the other guy going to show up?" I goes, "I don't know." He goes, "That means he'll be by himself." I goes, "Yeah, but Sean, you have the link too, so if you want to join to support Chuck, you can." So I know Sean is still watching. So hey, I want to give a shout out to Sean Kennedy too, by the way, because let's talk about. He got a message from me on a random Saturday to say, "Hey, can you help me, brother?" And he's out there making phone calls to you guys, and he's getting confirmations. He's a retired lieutenant from Chicago, and I just want to say I appreciate you, brother. I can't wait till we talk some more. But that's what we need. We need to be able to get together. And I agree. I think one of the things I'll ask for Strategies for Justice is that we'll send the sister, the new chief, a letter, let her know that we have a that we are here to support her. But most importantly, if she experienced some nonsense, here's where you can go.
Folks are already asking about it.
Yeah.
They no, she has apparently played a slightly low key position in the agency, but she was in the right spot at the right time. Okay.
Right.
I think, like Carol was saying, if you want to see the change in that department, yeah, you put a Black woman in there. No questions asked, no argument taken. The sisters today are taking care of business.
Yep. So Michelle, I see you here. You can unmute and definitely ask a question or make a comment. Go ahead and go for it, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. I'm still trying to get used to this Zoom stuff, and I use it every day. I'm Michelle Beckenball, and I've known Terry for a couple years now, several years now. I'm the Community-Oriented Policing Unit Coordinator for the Penn State Police Department. And one of the things that we are trying really hard right now is to reach our students and reach our communities of color and our underrepresented minorities. And we're kind of, as much as we're out there and as much as we're trying to reach them and trying to get them to talk to us and stuff like that, it's still very hard to break that boundary that we have, that wall that's right there. Can you guys give any suggestions for us to kind of start breaking that wall down a little bit, that we can, that we can get our students to kind of start feeling more comfortable talking to us, coming to us if they have a problem, and especially one that we hear a lot, domestic violence and stalking and harassment and things like that, especially on college campuses. We really do want them to know that we are there for them and that we do want to help them. So we're just trying to get them to feel more comfortable coming to us and having those conversations, even if it's the difficult conversations that people kind of dance around. we're willing to have those conversations. I think that the kind of the hardest part that we have right now is getting people to sit down with us in order to start those conversations. And I was wondering if you guys had any tips for us and any suggestions for us.
I would say first of all, you have to have officers get down to their level. You have to make sure that you're relatable to them. You have to make sure that it's almost like you have to disrobe that uniform and be vulnerable with them, because the only way they're going to come to you is if they trust you. And that's going to be hard because of what you're seeing now. I mean, and not being funny, this younger generation has a strong discernment. They can see it, they can feel it. And if they don't trust you, they're going to shut down. So you have to have somebody that naturally clicks with them. Somebody that'll come out of uniform and go and sit and talk. Somebody that'll say, hey, let's go to lunch. That's what I had to do. Off duty, I had to go and spend time with them. They would see me off duty. So it's almost like you have to build a relationship starting from the bottom. But I had to tell them, hey, my mother was on drugs. I get it. I grew up my mother was a single parent. I get it. So I had to really be vulnerable. And so a lot of officers don't like to do that. But if you really want to gain their trust, you have got to be vulnerable.
What I used to tell the guys I supervised, get the hell out the car, walk across the street and shake somebody's hand. Say hello, introduce yourself. Let people know that you're interested and concerned about what their problems are, and that you are there to help them resolve those problems. You're not there to jack them up because you see them congregating on the street or listening to a bunch of loud music or smoking menthol cigarettes when they're supposed to be banned. You're there to help people resolve their problems. That's what folks have to see. They have to see that you want them to be just as successful as you are.
And a quick question on that, Chuck. How did you get some of those officers that kind of have more of the harder exterior that don't want to be that personable with somebody? How do you reach them to get them to see that this really is the way to start breaking that stuff down?
Well, see, as a supervisor, I could tell them point blank, you either do it that way or else,
I also think
it's hard, and I have to say it that way because we have to recognize that there are some people on the job who, number one, should not ever have been there on the job. Okay, they don't have the level of empathy for people that they need to have in order to do this job. So that's something we have to recognize and accept. But I tend to tell people that it's only a few people on the job that are idiots. The vast majority of police officers out there, right, wrong, or indifferent, white, black, and indifferent, they just want to do the job. They want to do something productive. And that's what you have to encourage. You have to encourage them to do something productive and do it in a positive, fair way. Plain and simple.
Yep. I think Heather, you had something to add to that too.
I guess my question is, do you guys have any minorities on your staff? That's critical. You have to have minorities on your staff to connect with minority communities. That's part of the 21st century policing. It's important because a lot of times you automatically identify with someone that looks like you. If I go into a room and there's a single African-American female, I'm going to go towards her. If I go into a room full of men and there's a woman there, no matter what rate, I'm going to probably go towards her. So it's important to have that. And it's important to identify and know that African American communities are hesitant, hands down, to cooperate or to even have it seem that we're cooperating with law enforcement for a lot of reasons. So it's not we don't have any easy solutions for you. It's going to be difficult. But if you are genuine in what you're doing, we have members in ethical. We are 97% African American, but the 3% are generally white females. Because what you find is that a lot of white females encounter some of the same things that we do, but not on encounter a lot of the discrimination, but not on the same level. But a lot of times it's genuine. Our members are, especially our white females, they're some of our strongest members. And what they do is that they go out there. They just go out there. They're open. They listen to it. They listen to the criticism. They laugh and joke. Hey, I'm white. And I'm not trying to be Black. I'm not trying to say I understand your community. I'm trying to listen to you. That's what I can offer you is an ear. And if you have problems that I can address, that I can fix to help, I'll fix them. And those are generally the members who connect with the community that we have. So diversity is important. You're going to have someone on your staff that's going to be minority because we are a bridge. We do break the barriers, as a sergeant who was the only Black female sergeant in homicide and working at night with all men. I'm sorry, Lieutenant Wilson, all men, and working with all white squad at some point. A lot of times people in the community, women, men, they see me and they instantly relax and they come to me. And some of that is because they feel that energy. And a lot of it is because I'm Black and I'm a woman. So you're going to have diversity. You're just going to have people who are open to listening. And a lot of it is listening to what they're saying.
Okay, thank you everybody very much. That really does help a lot.
To add something, like I agree with the diversity, but you also have to have people that are people persons. So it doesn't matter what color. If you have someone who doesn't want to deal with people, then you shouldn't have them deal with people. You should hire people who are people persons. And then as far as like domestic violence and stuff like that, some people don't know how to deal with that. So like at the beginning of the semester or whatever, you can give out pamphlets and stuff and just like tell them to keep it in their room or something. So that way, if there is someone who has a problem with domestic violence and the pamphlet is there, then the abuser is not going to feel some type of way like they went to go seek out these papers because everyone is getting them, at the beginning of a semester. So then, they would have those papers on hand and make sure every room has it so that if there is a problem, they can be able to reach out that way too.
Real quick to add what you said, Carol, you made me think, get speakers to come in. That worked real well where I was at. We had officers that would sponsor. I sponsored the sex trafficking. So what I did was I brought in a speaker and she began to speak. And before I knew it, those young girls started coming to me because they trusted me. And we ended up having like 30 girls that were being sex trafficked and we didn't even know it. And I was very close in the community. I had no idea. We started learning who the big recruiters were. So if you start having people come in and help to speak, that helps, and having you all sponsor it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And again, Michelle, a speaking bureau that focuses on race, disability, gender, and law enforcement. So
I'm so hired, Michelle.
I just happen to know somebody who does that, who can help me with that. Yes.
All joking aside, I want to echo what everyone has said to you too. I do believe that the one unique thing about a college town is that you happen to have students with different experiences coming across the country to this one location. And I'll tell, like, when I'm from New York. I'm from Queens, right? I went to school in Maine, and when I got there, I didn't know what to expect from police because my only experience has been at NYPD. And I'm not going to badmouth the NYPD tonight, but my experience with the NYPD was always a positive one when I was a teenager, and I didn't do any criminal activity. I was a good kid, but when I got to Maine, I still had that shell up. It took her name was Sergeant Debbie Patterson. Sorry, Sergeant Debbie. She took her to break that shell. She was a white female, but she understood from the get go the baggage that I was bringing from New York, and she was able to break that down just by simply pulling over her car and saying words I've never heard before from a police officer, and that is, "How can I help you?" Never heard that before. And I was 17 years old, right? So I think, and she meant that. I was lost. She was like, "Yeah, I'll show you where it's at." Yeah, and she gave me a ride to the location I was looking for, and that was what it did for me. So I think keep in mind that you have folks coming from different areas, different stories. So thank you for joining us, Michelle. Um, again, I think we're out of time. I see that the chat is going pretty lively. I appreciate everybody. Again, to all the panelists tonight, we worked together. I know we got more work to do in the future. Again, I want to stay in contact with each one of you, and definitely what you're doing, and definitely how I can help. So if everyone could give some love to our panelists online, that would be great. Show some love for them. And I want to just close out just to say that we're trying to really find a way to get to this crazy world. I think when we look at America, we are trying to really find our way through this capital nonsense. I think the panelist was really amazing, and I mean, thinking about the police unions and the silence. To me, there's an old saying, "Silence is violence," right? And I think that when we look at trying to quote unquote bridge the gap, we're gonna have to break that silence. So I want to thank the guests today for continuing to break that silence and continue even after retirement to fight the good fight. So, with that said, I want to wish everyone a great night, and remember to speak power through truth. See you.